All right, everybody, welcome back. It's the end of the world with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Stu, and today we are talking about Train to Busan, the 2016 South Korean zombie thrill ride. Some are calling it a zombie masterpiece, even, a work of genius. And, we tend to agree. We both really like the movie. However, before we get to that, as you may have heard, the last week or so has been, since Liberation Day, which we released our podcast on Tuesday. I believe Liberation Day was the Wednesday after our most recent episode. And
it was an exciting era, shall we say.
It inaugurated a wonderful new era of collapse in the American stock market. The threat of $30,000 iPhones is on the horizon. Did you see that? That's what a fully U.S. manufactured iPhone has the potential to cost. And
it'd be nice. We'd all get off our phones,
Yeah, right. Just because no one could have one.
Start spending quality time, actually seeing each other, looking up in the train, all that stuff.
Yeah. Bring back the golden era of the 50s. Maybe this is all like a long play to get us back to those sort of paleocon type guys who want.
I do really appreciate the defenders of Trump's recent moves, that it always seems to exist in this convoluted 3D chess long play scenario. There's no way to actually, it's like, oh yeah, no, this is actually part of some grand scheme. And then you listen to him talk as he tries to explain that the Los Angeles Dodgers ran out of pitchers during the World Series, and you're like, I'm not sure if he's thinking too many steps ahead.
It's not clear that he's baseball manager level thinking ahead. Yeah, it's
why don't you explain what your thoughts are on the sort of.
Well, I've read a lot of different people.
It's currently Monday evening.
Yep.
In New York,
April the 7th.
I'm back in Brooklyn, and the town has welcomed me with open arms. Ran out and got a bodega sandwich my first day. Got back into that cultural experience. It was great.
Paradise.
But it's hard to say what we should be saying on Tuesday morning when the podcast does come out. That's how it feels now. Pretty much every week.
Right. I mean, the last 2 days, on Thursday and Friday of last week, after the tariffs were announced, the market plunged precipitously. Basically, the worst 2 days that it had had since 2020, certainly, and two of the worst days ever in terms of just volume of money lost by the market itself.
Money. Yeah, I made out even. I'm currently even in the great collapse.
Well, just wait until you start getting the $9 bananas or whatever the.
Right, I do. That's one of the elements of it that I really like. Is I would never claim to understand exactly what is going on from an economic stance.
Nor would I.
Not my strong suit. But I do love once again the sort of claim of worker politics that undergirds much of the right wing's defense of this. Right. And I do hear it a lot. And at first blush, I am sympathetic to here's 50% of Americans don't have a single stock. And so when you're reporting the end of the world because the stock market is going down, it's like, I don't have 401k. So, but it's so deliriously short-sighted. It's like, no, we don't have this whole separate economic system that will then take care of a struggling working class if those who already control our entire lives are also worse off. It's so crazy.
Right. Well, there'll be no ripple effects from the richest people and the richest companies all having.
I'm just sure that no one would bother to take it out on people with less money. I've never seen that before in America. And I highly doubt that we'll see it again, And he's out there just doing yelling his all caps truth socials that the economy is actually in a huge upturn. He is saying patience sometimes,
Yep.
But he's also just like, there's no more inflation. There's so many jobs. Manufacturing's coming back. It's
Well, the
just
thing
like,
about I listened to a few pods. Adam Tooze and some other people were talking about and Vivek Chibber was on the American Prestige pod. Really good episode last week or earlier this week. And Chibber is a professor at NYU, extremely smart guy, socialist.
okay.
And he was saying, well, look, even if the goal is to bring manufacturing jobs back and to kind of take us back to the 1950s when manufacturing jobs were something like 30% of
Mhm.
the employment options, like 30% of people who were employed were in some form of manufacturing in the 1950s. And I think it's now down to like 9%, something like that, maybe 8%. And even if, you forced manufacturing to return to the United States because of efficiency in manufacturing, like you could maybe, Chipper was saying, you can maybe get that number up to like 11. I mean, 11%, that would be a miracle. But it's just like the point of fact, it does not take as many people to manufacture stuff as it did in the 1950s because of automation, like obviously. So there's this weird fantasy that suddenly like everyone's going to be like going back to the Ford plant, like working on the assembly line, like putting the panels on the cars. It's like, no, robots do that. Like, what do
Right. I
you?
mean, but that's also, I mean, to me, if I was to like guess a long game, right, it's some weird draconian fantasy where they do manage to reshore a bunch of stuff. Although you also see people who, run huge companies like you can't just bring it back right away.
Yeah.
Like in the meantime, it's going to be calamitous, but we would, even if we were reacting how you wanted to, we'd have to bring our whole manufacturing operation
Well, it's
back
going to
to the
take had 10, 5 to 10 years, right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And like I mean to me that the reason that this to me is just another in a long list of the same thing. Like I know people are reacting in completely different ways and like obviously I'm not. I know that there are a lot of regular Joes with, you know, 401ks and unions with pensions and it's not just rich people losing money, so who gives a shit about it, right? But what I mean by it just feels like another part of the same thing is that Trump, as he does with so many other things, is able to claim the sort of mantle of saving the American worker, right? Using like some similar language that sort of anti-NAFTA people even were using. And they're not on the right back then, obviously. But my biggest point is really more that like all of these things, whether it's employment or the impact of AI or freelance culture or the gig economy or climate, just every single thing down the list would require to make major changes, which I don't think anyone denies, which is why Trump is able to have some support for these things, is that everyone recognizes something huge has to happen in so many number of ways. But like once a society is unhealthy at its core or rotten, the impact doesn't actually translate because the rest of the elements of society would not be able
they're
to hit
not in place.
in a healthy way. So like,
Yeah.
if the company that I work for takes a beating in this, I'm just a casualty. I'm
Yeah.
not
They're just going to fire you, right?
right. And again, then you have all these other people who like have lived their whole lives with no ability to do any manufacturing work. I mean, I worked at a factory for a summer when I was very, very young. Um and I mean, I'm in my 40s. Like I can't
You're not like going back to the
yeah,
factory
and
or
so there's no institutional health that would be required to deal with all this because that's when you do get a lot of like liberals being like stuff would cost so much. And so that also weirdly implies that like people who are making bad money and treated pretty poorly in many places of the world to make our products just kind of have to soldier along because it would be too
it's
much.
too arduous for us if they
Yeah.
stop. Right, and never mind, like those people then lose their jobs. Those countries fall further into poverty. But I mean, it's a tangled web, and when you start to
Well,
just
but
kind
it's
of
it's it's sort of a genius move in the sense that like it weirdly like increases the sense of American isolationism across the political spectrum. Like
yeah,
using your point, it's like now that there's people who like there's like a protectionist element against to protect sort of American plenty and American abundance that is totally beholden to things like the stock market. And as a general rule, my whole life, I've just been like, whenever I'm defending the virtue and importance of the marketplace, I'm just not sure that I'm on the right track.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. The other thing though is that if this unsettles the world economy in the way that it seems very likely to, that will of course only increase the desire of immigrants to come to the United States, right? I mean, there's like all these ironic dominoes that fall, and
Well, and I think that probably this ends up being potentially just as much an economic story as a geopolitical one, right? So, and I think we'll probably talk about it sometime soon. But the you're starting to hear people talk about, the inevitability of like the Chinese century,
sure,
right?
yeah,
And just how much I think Americans don't understand what that would mean to the American economy in ways that I frankly don't even really understand. Um, but the way that China is doing things, again, is not a good argument in terms of like whatever you would call the health of a society. You can have whatever your perspective is on China, but there is no doubt that they seem to be better positioned for the future than America.
in some ways, definitely. They have some problems too, though. I mean,
I mean, everyone has
But
huge problems.
China has like a massive aging problem because of the one child policy, where they have
Sure,
like a
I guess I mean like I don't. Again, I don't really understand as much as I need to about this
no,
stuff.
but I mean you're right. I'm not refuting what you're
In
saying at
terms of
all.
doing things at scale,
Yeah,
I
no. As we talked about last week, I mean like with the abundance agenda and what have you.
yes,
Clearly, China
I would love to see because Derek Tom
Thompson.
had the big moment, right? Did you notice this? See this? Like he's a hugely viral clip from an interview. I think it might have been on MSNBC. I'm not
I did.
sure,
Oh, maybe I saw this. What did
but
he say?
people are sort of calling it like the was it Rick Santelli Tea Party
Oh yeah,
speech?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was just like he was just explaining to somebody how insane viewing tariffs like this is.
Yeah, I saw that he got a bunch. He had a bunch of viral tweets, probably in the aftermath of this
Mhm.
appearance, and I was like, "Ah, oh, there's that guy we were just talking about."
But I think it was a Brunig tweet that I think sort of sums the whole thing up, and never mind about what's going to happen. But like he said something to the effect of it just comes down to the fact that there's this one guy who thinks that trade deficits equal
You lose.
you lose.
Yeah,
And it's not really more complicated than that. It's that he doesn't understand.
yeah.
Now he's implementing things, but he doesn't get it, right?
This is
Like,
a fundamental failure to grasp the logic. I mean, we don't understand this stuff that well, but I mean, it seems pretty clear given the fact that apparently an AI algorithm was used to calculate.
right. All that. I mean, the calculation of the numbers alone, the equation thing. I mean, like,
Oh, where the guy's like, no, that's not the equation at all. And then he posts the same equation, except it has like a four and a four canceling it. I
yeah, yeah.
mean, that was amazing. Yeah, it's pretty grim, and I think this doesn't bode that well for the future of our AI led government. Yeah,
I mean, it's all it's a classic case of you're largely on the sidelines watching it all, but it's so exhausting from a day to day basis. It's sort of it's incredible. And then but then the problem with all of it, and I think probably with the markets too, is like what we're gonna wake up tomorrow and he's gonna have put a pause on all of it. I don't know.
right. And then
Maybe.
do we just wait for this to happen again in 60
Yeah,
days or
right.
whatever?
Just I mean the idea that any sort of trade deficit is exploitation and abuse of that from that trading partner. There were also these stories of these tiny places that don't even
Lesotho,
like what like, and
an
I get
island off Australia, has like 90% tariffs. No one lives there. Stuff like that.
yeah, but they're paying a premium now, man. I mean, jeez.
They're paying a premium
Imagine being the one
to
guy
not
there
live there. Yeah, yeah. There's like a penguin research station there. It does
just doing a
nothing.
little like cute little Etsy importer exporter operation, and then you're just taking to the cleaners.
Yeah. from your from your like pirate island off the
Yeah,
coast
yeah.
of Australia.
Selling Yankee candles for pennies on the dollar.
All right, so as this plays out, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll probably end up doing a more in depth, as Michael has alluded, look into global trade. Perhaps we'll do
It's
some
probably time to figure something out
do some
about it.
research, find a book that we can read that'll help us
Yeah.
understand it a little bit more comprehensively. Listen to some more pods, do some more article deep dives. But now let's talk about a subject we have not revisited since our second episode, which was on The Last of Us. And good news, Last of Us Season 2 starts, I believe, next week.
Yeah.
So in about 2 months, we'll probably be back with Last of Us Episode 2.
If you need something uplifting to keep we
Yeah,
can
but the subject in question is, of course, zombies. Zombies are a big feature of apocalyptic film and television of the last, I would say, 60 years, right? Really, since Night of the Living Dead. It's kind of curious that we've only covered, this is only the second time in 63 episodes that we're covering them. And I think it's because,
listeners, we will not let that happen again.
yeah. So from now on, we'll implement the zombie protocols. One every 10 episodes, we have to have a zombie film because there are so many. Um, this one's a little different, though, because it's set in South Korea. This is the first non-English language film we've done in a while. I think maybe since The Beast, which we did, I don't know, 20 episodes ago. Um, do you have much experience with South Korean cinema, Michael?
Neither that nor zombie pictures, really.
You're not a zombie head. You're not a
I,
South Korean film.
I'm ahead of neither. Zombies, my relationship to zombie movies, I think from a very early age, I just discarded it as just too ridiculous.
Just tuned out.
Very similar to my experience with the fantasy genre.
Pre Game of Thrones.
And then Game of Thrones came around, and I was eventually convinced to watch it. And I was like, oh, okay. It's not quite full on fantasy all the time. And that's also why like Last of Us is interesting to me, and this movie.
Yeah,
It's not quite just, I mean, this is straight zombie in a way that doesn't make me feel like I'm just watching a zombie movie, if that makes sense.
it does. I haven't watched it that much. I've watched a lot of zombie cinema, but I have not watched that much South Korean cinema. A couple that I have seen are Old Boy, of course,
Sure.
the famous. As One was a film that I saw during one of Justin Decloux's movie marathons last year. It's about the time the South Korean and North Korean table tennis teams teamed up as one team, and it's very good and very the most. It's the girls' team. The rivals become friends, and then
Oh, cool.
they win the championship, and then they never see each other again. It's very
Right.
very moving.
Well, Handmaiden. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not actually.
Quite erotic. It's actually a very, very good movie.
Okay. Yeah. And then another one I saw was Hostage, Missing Celebrity, which is another of the last 10 years. Very good, very dark. I really like the way these films are lit. Uh, they're a little bit brighter than real life at
Mhm.
moments and darker than real life at others. Of course, Parasite is obviously
Yes.
the
Which we will do at some point, no doubt.
yeah. Did you like Parasite?
Yeah, you didn't love it, huh?
I was a little mid. I thought it was kind of mid. I liked it until the midpoint when they like discover the other guy hiding in the basement.
I'll pretty much just apologize for any movie that's hitting on those themes. I'm down.
Yeah, yeah. I really liked Memories of Murder though, which is
I didn't see
his
that.
earlier film. That's really good. That's worth a watch. So we're not by no means are we experts in South Korean cinema. I should be abundantly clear at this point. And I wasn't familiar with Yeon Sang-ho, who's the director of this movie, but it's really well made. It's really excellent. Starts with a great note of the ominous talk of some kind of biotech leak at this factory.
Yeah, it's 2016, and the movie opens up with real
Real
COVID vibes.
COVID vibes. Guys are in
Same uniforms, the hazmats, the
quarantine zone.
yeah,
It's like New Rochelle, spring 2020 vibes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy runs over a deer after he gets through this checkpoint, and he's
I just want to say before you get into that, because
sure.
there is the moment where he's stopped right at the checkpoint,
Yep.
and the guy who's in the hazmat suit explains like it's different. It's not
It's not foot and
foot-
mouth disease. Yeah.
and there's an interesting moment where he's like, "Well, you better not kill my livestock again, or I'll go mad." Right?
Hmm.
Which no doubt he went mad at some point, to say nothing of the livestock. But I that really stood out to me early in the movie of like something I that we sort of just talked about too, which is that like
With the bird flu.
no, like with the idea like who is impacted
Yep.
by large scale crisis, and in a system that is sort of profit driven, that like one of the main impediments to genuinely being able to shift and react is a lack of cohesion and community and institutional support. And so it's just this guy in his truck being like, please don't take my individual cows. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
something stuck with me there where it's like, yeah, that's kind of what we're all doing, whether it's like, please let me go to brunch again. Let's get lockdown over. Or, like whatever, like little thing is in your life or the control that you have, as long as that doesn't slip away, then everything is actually not that bad. And I think that's really what we saw in COVID, which is why it reminded me of that.
Yeah. It's a little bit prophetic in that way. So he hits a deer. He drives off. He's annoyed, but his car seems mostly okay. And as he drives off, the deer comes back to life.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one thing we didn't want to have happen, and it has happened. Uh, then we meet our main character, who is a successful stock executive of or fund manager.
Yep.
He's a bigwig. He's got an assistant. He is a parent, but he seems to be a somewhat absent parent.
I'll never guess. He's absent.
Yeah, his mother lives with him and probably does the majority of the childcare. Right. The mother's kind of cajoling him to get back together with his estranged wife in a very classic hectoring parent in traditional society kind of way, where you get the tension of like the old ways, like divorce is you never do that. But he's like, but I'm not from the old ways, mom. I'm a
Right,
successful
right.
CEO, right? Like he's kind of westernized. He's leading this mega corporation.
Yeah, like you're married and you have a child, so no matter what happens, that's just your lot.
Yeah, exactly. And it's his daughter's birthday the following day, and the one thing she wants is to go to Busan. Now they're in Seoul, which is towards the north of the Korean Peninsula, and Busan is the southernmost major city in
Huh.
Korea. So Korea's not that big, so it's a doable 1 day train ride. But it's also historically interesting because Busan is the one major city that was never conquered by the North during the Korean War. The Korean War story is absolutely crazy. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like at one point, North Korea with Chinese backing and Russian backing had like gone all the way. They basically had conquered the whole, and then the U.S. like pushed back and eventually got the wanted to keep going, but eventually they had armistice or
Was Busan a stronghold, or they just
yeah,
didn't?
it is. It was a stronghold, and it was
Oh,
where the like
makes
South.
more sense.
What's that?
Title makes more sense. The choice of city makes more sense.
Yeah, I think that's got to be at least somewhere in the background with this. Is that like Busan is like the point of last resort where you go there and then you regroup and then you can reclaim the. I, Again, I don't know that much about the Korean War. I mean, I listened to the Blowback season; it was amazing, but that much I do know. South Korea society after the war is also just completely insane
Really.
how fascist it was. Yeah, yeah, with the U.S. backing, of course.
Mhm.
But in any case, she wants to go to see her mom. They get on the train in the morning. He gives in. He says, "All right, I'll put off my schedule." We get on this train. We sort of see the coterie of characters uh, that will be traveling on this journey
Ones that will
with
survive for a bit. You
for
can
a
tell.
little
Right?
for a little bit. So there's the South Korean baseball team, right?
They're great.
They've all got their bats. They're in their uniforms, traveling in the uniform. Very Samuel Alito coded. Uh,
Hopefully bringing weapons on the train.
Yeah, very useful as it
Yeah.
turns out. There's an unhoused person who kind of sneaks onto the train at the last minute and is just muttering things like "all dead, everybody
Yeah.
dead."
Right, and no one's taking him seriously,
Right,
right?
it's just a crazy unhoused person. We mustn't take him seriously. And eventually, we see this couple there's a pregnant wife and her husband. The husband is this kind of macho working class guy who there's a bit of a class conflict tension between him. I have these characters' names written down somewhere, but they're not in the top of my notes for some reason. Um, well done, good note taking, Stu. Uh,
His wife is pregnant.
his wife is pregnant, and he's funny. He's a good character. It's the actor who plays Gilgamesh in the Eternals movie,
Really?
which I'm sure everyone has seen because it's such a brilliant picture and not at all a complete nightmare. Um, I say this as a fan of Jack Kirby and his creations, but yikes. Um, very soon, we see this woman who gets on. She's staggering. She's fighting something off, it seems. She's got some kind of injury on her leg that she's sort of black veins are appearing. It's not looking
Meanwhile,
good.
meanwhile, the dad of the daughter, the main character, is passed out in the train with
Yep.
his kid traveling beside him, and she just decides to go for a stroll,
She's just wandering around.
just wandering around, and he just doesn't wake up. He's a pretty bad father.
I think that's definitely the correct reading that the film wants us to have. Uh, Believe it or not, this woman who's been wandering around is, you guessed it, a zombie. She
Mhm. And
collapses.
we don't know why. See this, so they've also kept the sort of mystery of what is unfolding. Everything is happening at arm's length. I mean, obviously from the deer, but also there are these like warnings. It's originally suggested when he first wakes up, he gets a call that there's like a strike, right? There's some sort of
Yeah,
like
there's some
oh,
disruption.
there's just general problems. The news looks a little weird. Like, oh, interesting.
Fish in a reservoir found
Yeah,
dead.
are
And
people protesting?
yeah. Um, these are fast zombies also, like in World War Z,
Yeah.
not like the classic Walking Dead slash Living Dead zombies. They get away, and the bunch of people are infected. One of the attendants is trying to help this woman. She gets bitten almost immediately, and they realize the zombies cannot, in fact, open the door because the parasite that takes them over is not fully cognizant. They're not able to use fine motor skills or what have you. Um, Apparently, these zombies are like triggered by the sight of human flesh, but if they cover up the window separating the partitions of the train.
Yeah, that part I was a little confused
Well, I
by
think it's
because
interesting because like it seems like in darkness they go blind and they can't see at all.
right, but they don't continue to try to do that.
Well, they
I mean, they do the fire extinguisher spray,
right,
so-
and they put newspapers on one.
right? But like, why wouldn't that be on every door then? The rest of the movie.
Well, things get pretty chaotic, as you'll
Oh,
recall.
sure, but, it's got to be newspapers around. You're on the train to Busan.
Um, okay, the stockbroker character's name is Siak Woo, and the sort of working class guy is called Yoon, I believe.
Mhm.
And as people are like rushing to get into this chamber they've barricaded, Sakwu does not like he doesn't hold the door for them.
Right.
And this becomes a real like oh, we're not worth saving, you rich guy? Like you think we poor peons like should just go be
Yeah,
with
and
the
it's like
zombies?
it's interesting because they make it quite clear at this moment in the movie that those two who are trying to get in could probably almost certainly make it. They're clearly not infected and they're running. So one of the things that you can tell pretty quick is like changes to their eyes and
Yep. Yep.
right. So and like, this is him and his pregnant wife, right?
Yeah.
And the guy's still just like, I'm gonna close
And
this.
they had kind of bonded with the daughter earlier, and it's clear that the daughter has more affection for working people than she does for her
Yeah.
bourgeois
Moments in the
scum.
movie where she's just like, "You're not a good person."
But she also, they're like, your dad is an asshole, and she's like, oh, I know, or something like that. I mean,
Where it's like, what is he? They ask her, what does your dad do for a living? And
she's
he's
like,
a
fun manager.
fund manager, and the guy's like, oh, so he's a bloodsucker. And then the wife's like, don't say that in front of the child, and she's like, well, that's what
Yeah,
everyone thinks.
she's like, that's actually exactly
She's
correct.
also really good. I love
The
her.
kid is great. Yeah, they call back. The guy wakes up. He rescues the unwillingly lets them in. He calls his mother. She's dying. she's the zombies have gotten to her. She's like, I'm not gonna make it. It's clear that Seoul is being in the process of being overrun, right? And there's this announcement going over. We must stay inside and trust our government. Stuff like this is being said by on the radio and on the television. Very COVID coded, pre-COVID, very prescient. The father's advice to his daughter is, you've got to watch out for yourself. He has a real Ayn Randian sort of selfishness is good and the only virtue, but she doesn't really feel for this, as we discussed. So they make it to the first stop, and the conductor announces, look, we've made it to Daejeon, which is about halfway, right? They're halfway down the South Korean country. And he's like, yeah, the train is stopping here because, something's going on. Keep in mind, the conductor does not like know what's happening in the back of the train,
Yep.
which is now like largely overrun with zombies. Which is the whole premise of the film is very good, right?
I love the fact that that guy's just driving the train.
Yeah, it's just like a train that he doesn't realize is full of zombies.
Yeah.
And the zombies are also really good. They're quite spastic in a classical way. They move in a very kinetically interesting, like the choreography of their movements.
It's quick acting, and they don't lose too much of their like human
Yeah,
figure. It's not like when the mold and the fungus, the
right. It's
crazy.
not that at all. I mean, they're recently deceased, so they haven't had time to decompose.
And there also is this element that you start to learn about a bit more as we start to learn some of the characters who do end up falling victim, where there's this like moment of transition
That's right.
that allows for, is like my favorite part of the movie, probably, that sort of allows for a bit of communication about the character and their relationships as they go into the zombie life.
As they pass on into zombiedom. So they stop at this place. It's empty. There's no one around. Seok-woo has been in contact with a friend or a business associate who is going to help them evacuate there at Daejeon. And he claims the army is there. Don't worry, the army's like holding them back. They get to the station. It's totally empty. He takes his daughter off a secret way. The unhoused guy is like, I'm going with you guys. I don't know where those other people are going. And he's like, no, just go with them.
But it also leads to this moment, right, where again, it's like he tells the kid to just stay there for a minute.
Yeah.
And he just walks away from his child.
In the middle of a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And he goes ahead with the unhoused guy and is like, they see a person coming and they're like, oh, an army person. They're like, help. And as he gets a little closer, they realize, uh-oh, he's a zombie.
He's not a trusted authority figure of the South Korean army. He is, in fact, a zombie.
Yeah, and the other group that went the other way, they get they're going down the escalators and they see the troops below them. They're like, oh, the troops. Same thing. They turn, they're zombie troops. Yeah. So everyone's like scrambling back to the train, which ironically is like, though infested with zombies, at least there's a couple clear chambers in there. It's much safer than this now zombie infested.
But you're starting to see the cracks appear, which end up forming, I think, one of the interesting commentaries of the movie, right? Which is that, you've got these zombies who, simply put, are bad and looking to kill you. And then you've got humanity trying to survive. And very quickly, in any number of ways, individuals, obviously, particularly the main character in these moments, is very much willing to sacrifice people who are not infected in order to take care of themselves.
Exactly. That becomes the main theme of the last act of the movie. They get back to the train, but some of them have to get on cars that unfortunately have a few zombies.
Just a few, so they're gonna have to figure it out.
So they're split up.
Hmm.
Most of our main characters get back on, but Xiaoku and Yun are like separated from the daughter and the wife,
Yeah.
who are hiding in a bathroom with three other people.
Yeah, they tried to just sneak in, and for some reason they went just way too slowly. This part it was just a little bit. I was like, "What? Just go!" And it
Well,
was clear.
they're trying not to alert the zombies that are
Well, yeah, but
roaming.
like they alerted them precisely by doing exactly what they did
Yeah,
anyway. And so they're just trying to hold on to the bathroom door and all of that at first. A lot of the movie is people trying to hold on to doors. If you are looking to get into the movie, it's
there's
very
a lot of good glass doors breaking from body pressure and stuff.
close-ups of hinges and such.
If that's your thing,
Well, this is
sign
this is
up.
about this a bit after we had watched it before we hopped on here, where it's like I like one of the things I liked about it because I am more inclined, just generally speaking, to enjoy a movie in about these things, zombies, fantasy, whatever, that are somewhat still grounded in reality.
Yeah.
And this one does a great job of like slow rolling what's going on in the outside world, slow rolling what's going on in the train one by one. Oh, it's bigger, it's bigger. An excellent job to the point where like it's not really until you're in this train station and there's competing groups of zombified and everyone's closing in on the daughter and they have to go save her that you're like, okay, now we're like really in this full blown
Now we're in an action movie.
thing.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting elements to it as well is that they don't they don't really make try to make it suspenseful or scary. Like obviously you are hoping that the people that you are learning about don't die. But you're sort of following them in the train as they go to different carts and closed doors. And there's no like very few jump scares. You know what I mean? Like it's not designed as like a zombie horror really in any way.
No, no, no. Not in a traditional American zombie thriller kind of way at all.
Right.
I agree.
You're not grossed out by the zombies. You're not freaked out by like one of them is at the top of the cart and you don't see them and they come swinging down. Like it's very little of that. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's more just like you can see the problem in front of you. Can you get away from it? Is basically the whole movie.
Right. And the zombies, my friend David Hobbs pointed out that I think that zombies maybe have a different resonance in a culture that's as homogenous as
Interesting.
Korea, where like everyone in Korea, for the most part, is just Korean.
Mhm.
And, there's a couple of Americans, couple of Japanese, whatever. But like uh, in America, part of, as I was talking about at the beginning, part of the zombie myth's power is that America is quite diverse. That there are black people, there are Latino people, there are et cetera, et cetera. And the zombie kind of comes to stand in some way for those. So that maybe the lack of suspense, the zombie is more about plague, contagion,
Mhm.
about like overflow. And which is why the scenes of them. What's that?
Compare it to the American one.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
which is what are you saying that it's like the other
Yeah,
basically?
exactly. That the zombie in the
The
night of
fear of
well, like Night of the Living Dead, right? Where our protagonist is African American and ends up surviving, spoiler alert, until the end when he is shot because he's black by the people hunting the zombies, right? That's oh, is he so different from the zombies? Like he's treated like them by the racist society, right? Whereas like this doesn't have that subtext. It does have the North Korea subtext, but again, the people in North Korea are Korean, right? I
yeah.
mean, there's no ethnic difference.
Mhm.
So in this case, I think the zombie thing becomes more about contagion. It becomes more about you could say maybe ideology if you want to push like the zombies are a North Korean stand-in or something. But
Yeah, I mean that to me is an interesting case, right? Like because if that is the argument, then what's interesting about it is that those running from the zombies, the South Koreans in this case, don't come across looking like amazing people either,
no,
right?
of course not. And that's sort of like so. Just to kind of move forward on the plot a bit, uh, the baseball player and our two main guys are trapped. They team up. They tape their arms up to prevent bites. They get a bat. They get some gets a shield. They decide to fight their way to rescue the family members. And I think the baseball player's girlfriend is with the group as well.
Or
Or no,
love him.
what's
She
that?
like she likes him. He doesn't like her at first, right? Is
Right.
that
Yeah, something
He
like
doesn't
that.
want to admit he likes
Right,
her. It's
there's
like
like a will
very
they, won't
British
they.
teammates. It's like all the other teammates at the beginning are like making fun of him.
For not like dating her when
Yeah.
she obviously likes him. Yeah, yeah. So eventually, they learn a few tricks. They learn that when they go through tunnels, the zombies are disabled, so they sneak by some that way. They face the Korean team who have all been zombified, which is very difficult, but
Great scenes. The
yeah,
base.
really good scenes. Eventually, they make their way. They rescue their family members. They make their way to the front where there is the original isolated car where there are no zombies, and they've been taken over by this evil CEO character, who I think he's an evil CEO. What more need you say? In contrast with our protagonist, who is also kind of a CEO, but is through his friendship with the working class members. Um, he's being reformed. He's being re-educated or something. He's being Maoist in a Maoist sense. He's been re-educated. Um, so Yeon Sang-ho is the working class guy who's in Eternals. He ends up they refuse to let them in. They assume they must be infected, even though, as you said, it's quite obvious they are not infected.
And this
Um,
this again, like that's another great example where it's like they're not willing to even risk what they can see in front of them. And they would rather, like, just by virtue of not being in this one cart, I guess, for long enough, it's like we don't care about you anymore.
yeah,
It's very interesting in that way.
right. And this ends up backfiring on them in a second. So
It's
they
very car.
eventually smash their way in, and they have to retreat. Everyone has to retreat to it further. At which point, the our beloved working class hero Yoon sacrifices himself so that his wife, and as his wife is fleeing, they haven't been able to decide the baby name. He shouts what the name shall be as his last words before he's overcome by the
I
zombies.
thought, I mean, I actually really enjoyed the sentimental side of this movie.
Yeah, it's very sentimental.
And I think if you do get there with it, you'll really like the movie, which I did. But that moment really, I loved that part. I thought that it was like, um, given how sort of dominant the theme of running away from the zombies are, one of the things I do like about the movie is that I think you actually do become really attached to the characters. You
Yeah,
know, you,
absolutely.
in Last of Us, you have the advantage of it being a TV show and there's so much time, but it is often difficult in these types of romp disaster, constantly under threat movies to really care about like the absentee father who's trying to like
Trying to reform.
put his family back together or whatever the story is. And I thought the he was the best one in terms of like coming to grips with who he was helping out, right? And then like obviously taking a shine to the daughter who he sort of can see a young child. He's about to have one, all of
Yep,
that.
yep,
And this I think this sacrificial moment was like sort of perfectly timed too for the movie.
absolutely. And they eventually do get back into the restricted
He takes
area.
down so many, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Last Stand is so awesome. He like does this thing where he's like punching a bunch because he's super strong. He's like rocking out, trying to get as much time for
As
everybody.
he's turning into a
And
zombie.
then he takes this zombie, sort of knowing that he's going to get bit, and puts the zombie across his body, so that as he's like getting into it, the other zombies can't move because he's like blocked them off with this other zombie. It's a very cool shot.
It's very nicely done. Uh, they get in. They're like, "What the hell? Why did you not let us in?" They said, "We don't trust you. You've got to go into the next vestibule. Get away from us." So they're
Also, very well, love this part for the themes that we were talking about earlier, where what happens when they get in there is that they're sort of informed, like kindly or at least softly, that like this is the way it is and this is how it's going to be. And then it's just kind of silent as all of these people start to realize that they're down to do something very immoral
yeah.
and very, very awful. And then it just takes one guy going like, get out of here. And
And then
then
everyone's like,
just like,
ah.
yeah, but it's like a full like
You're
couple
like,
minutes.
oh, this is how like race riots happen,
Yes,
and like this is what the
very, very well done.
Nuremberg rallies were
You're at the
like.
point where you've got like a child.
Where it's like
A,
it's a tinderbox, a pregnant woman and a child, and you're
yeah,
kicking them out.
You
And
just
then as soon as they do that,
oh,
an old lady
part of the whole
whose sister has been trapped with and is a zombie.
yeah.
She's just like out of disgust for the behavior of her comrades,
Yeah.
mainly. She just
Mhm.
goes and like opens the door.
Opens the door, and before she does it, there's also like I said, there are these moments of transition where the human is a zombie but is not a zombie completely void of humanity.
Right.
And this like moment of connection, the zombies get these different looking eyes. And
But she's like seeing her sister and looking at her, and she can
yeah,
still see the
and
human,
there's still like a
a
connection between
hint of the
a very
humanity.
brief moment um that we'll get to in a second. Obviously the peak of that is at the end, but that part, like, I for me it kind of telegraphed the ending. Like
Yeah.
when I saw that I was like, okay. But it was pretty fantastic that they got like put in this little pen, and then there's this great shot where they can see that and they can hear that the zombies have gotten through. um and like it's not like they can take joy in it, but it like
They're saved by the other people's bad
that's right.
behavior.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, though, everyone in that cart dies, but the CEO sneaks into a bathroom, so he's still alive to ruin it for everyone in a
Yeah.
minute, right? They get to a station because they have to change tracks because there's been a flaming accident from one of the other zombified trains. And this is like the most high tension like
Mhm.
part of the film. As they're trying to get from their train to another, a bunch of our beloved characters fall. The baseball player and his girl
That's an also a great
are just
scene.
betrayed, are essentially
He's
betrayed by the CEO guy,
yes, and not really clear to me what his motivation was in the moment.
just to get her, use her as the zombie will eat her, won't eat me, kind of.
Yeah, but it felt like the way it was shot, they all could have ran the other direction,
Of
but I don't know.
course, you
But
know.
she was also excellent in the movie, I thought
Oh
too.
yeah, and then the baseball player stays with her as she converts,
Yeah,
and then she feasts on him, and he converts. Right, so
and like it's like this romantic moment where he's now fallen completely in love with her. She's turning into a zombie.
and he's like, "Well, so I'm
Sad
with you."
for her, and then he's like, I guess it's time to get bit. He's not like trying to get
He's
out of
not
the way.
fighting. Yeah, yeah,
And he just takes it, and he's like becoming a zombie, but like sad instead of like completely detached from it.
yeah. That's pretty
Very
dark.
well, very dark, but very cool.
And then the conductor gets a new train running, uh, but then is trying to
Yeah, really
help.
want to do your
Oh,
job at this point.
Yeon
We're
So
getting,
Yeon,
we're getting to Busan.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
My
Yeon
job
So
was to get. I want it in the American version. There would inevitably be the conductor being like,
this
my job,
train.
my job is to get a train to Busan. So what am I going to do? I'm getting a train to Busan.
Yeah. That would be the line exactly. Uh, the good-natured conductor is trying to help our evil CEO, whose name is Yeon Suk. I have his name written here for some reason. Um, but in the process, what happens? He gets bit. Meanwhile, the daughter and Seok and the pregnant woman are trapped in between two trains that have collapsed after a collision, and the unhoused man valiantly sacrifices himself so they might escape. So we see like the CEO is selfish, the unhoused man is selfless. It's just like okay, what are you saying here? I don't get it. I'm not getting this. The final moment of the picture is them getting onto this. The conductor's gone, but the train's already moving. They can figure out how to run it. To their horror, they discover that Yeon Suk, the CEO, is on the train. We're just down to our final three, which is the pregnant woman, the daughter.
Final four.
Well, final three, and then they learn on getting on the train that the CEO is also on, and what's worse, he's in the process of becoming a zombie. So there's this like kind of final showdown between the evil CEO and the reformed CEO. because whatever the film's politics, the CEO characters have to fight it out at the end because there's a good one and there's a good billionaire, Michael, and a bad billionaire. It's sort of like Democratic versus Republican politics, right? We need more good billionaires.
The movie's also pressing in that way because it feels like every movie now is about billionaires.
Good Lord, is it ever? Unfortunately, Yeon Suk, the evil CEO, manages to bite our hero, but our hero also ejects him from the train. So
still saving his daughter.
The daughter is safe, and he instructs the pregnant woman and his daughter how to stop the train when they finally reach Busan, and then
And it's known that this woman, who now has a very obvious and seemingly eternal attachment to the child,
will take care of her.
Is now she will have
a new mother.
Unless I guess
unless the mother's still alive in Busan, but if need be,
right. And a lot of Busan.
Yeah, Busan's going to be kind of a nightmare. It's going to be. Apparently, there's a whole franchise of these too. There have been several sequels.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if they're as good as. I'm assuming they're not, but it might be fun to revisit in the future. See if we learn what happened to any of our beloved characters. So, the train does get to Busan, and they're approaching this tunnel that's been guarded by snipers. Busan apparently is still safe, and the daughter and the young mother-to-be are walking along, and they're in the, the guy's holding a gun at them. Shall we shoot, sir? And then they hear her singing Aloha, which is a callback to the recital at the beginning of the movie that the absentee father did not physically attend.
Right.
But he did
watch.
He did watch a FaceTime video of it.
I'll zoom in. Yeah.
And so it's a kind of, she's singing Aloha, she's saying goodbye to her departed father.
It's quite sweet.
But the song is also cueing in the waiting snipers that it's a human, zombies can't sing.
Right. But there's also the moment when he goes from being able to explain how to stop the train and save everybody and make sure all the loose ends are tied up.
Yeah.
He's at the back of the train by himself, and there's this great shot where his eyes have shifted and he's sort of completely at peace, right?
Yeah.
He's smiling and he drifts into this like dream, I guess, about his child when she was a baby, right?
That's right. And then he
really
jumps off the train and they escape.
It's like, I can't be here anymore. Yeah.
And that's the end of the movie. Good movie, right? I mean, very effective. I would say like sentimental. A lot of South Korean films that I have seen have this very sentimental side that I'm not always opposed to. Like, it is an interesting juxtaposition with the gyrating zombies, and it's like, just like from a formal standpoint, this isn't what I would anticipate, but pretty pleasing. What are your final thoughts, Michael? I think you liked it even a little more than I did.
Yeah, I thought that again, I like when there's some separation from the like hard zombie vibe or like the hard fantasy vibe, as long as it pays off. And I thought that given the limited time that they have to like do both things, it was actually a pretty impressive movie. And I do really like the idea. It didn't feel like it just went to 0 from 100 in terms of like the way that people started sort of turning on each other. I thought that was also like a really good build.
It was subtly managed. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. That was great. So next week we're still working on our topic. We're thinking about trying something a little different. Yes. Maybe a new genre of art.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll see. We're gonna do a little bit more reading, a little bit more research. Don't worry, it'll still be about the end of the world.
Yes, it better be.
So in the meantime, if you like the show, you can follow us on the podcatcher of your choice. If you really like the show, you can leave us a rating and or review on that same podcatcher. You can also follow us on Instagram at the end of the world WMS. And we will be back next week. Until then, this has been the end of the world with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Stu. And we will talk to you real soon.